In part 6 of our plasticity car modeling series, we are going to dive in and we're going to change the overall look of our fender flares, so stay tuned. Hey everyone, this is Matt with Learn Everything About Design, and in this video, we are actually going to hack up what we did, and we're going to make a different version of this car. Now, at this point, a couple of things that we've done complicate the process, namely adding fillets to this upper edge. So that was great for visualization, and if we were happy with the fender flares, it's perfectly fine. However, it's actually going to make things a little bit harder for us. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take what we have, this entire sheet, and I'm going to duplicate it and then hide it. I'm actually going to rename this. I'm just going to call this duplicate. Now, the main reason for that is in case we want to go back, I want to keep a version or preserve a version of it. So the first thing that we need to do now that we have our duplicate is we need to start trimming this up and getting rid of that fillet. Now, if you happen to know of a good way to get rid of the fillet, then please leave a comment and let me know. What I'm going to do is I am going to delete it and I'm going to extend the sheets and then trim them. So the first thing I want to do is align vertically from the origin, C for cut, and then I want to delete this section over here. So that way I'm only working on half. The next thing I need to do is get rid of the fillet. So Shift Delete. We want to make sure that any little faces that we have like this get removed. So Shift Delete for those, and back here as well. And there's actually a tiny face we need to make sure we get rid of that, and it should be pretty good. So the main reason we're doing this is because we want that harder edge there. So we're going to take this upper edge. We'll need to select all of them, and you'll need to make sure that you get these little pieces as well. So move over to an edge selection, and this is where we need to zoom in and just make sure that we get all of these. And once we have all of them, we can just pull it out and extend it past the other edge. There we go. Next, I want to hide this body. And then we're going to do the same thing, going back to our edge selection, zoom in. And when you're in a perspective mode and you zoom in, there'll be a point where you sort of zoom past the position of the camera. If you go into an orthographic mode, which is 5 on the numpad, then you don't have that problem. So you can see here. But that's okay. We're just going to grab this and then pull it out. So if we bring that sheet back, they should overlap now. And because the front and the back were flat, we shouldn't have any issues there. So we're going to go back to our sort of all selection and select one of the bodies and hit C on the keyboard. And we need to select the cutting tool. Notice when we do this that we might want to select multiple pieces, right click to accept. And this extra little piece we can now get rid of. We're going to repeat the process, but now we want to cut the side of the body, C, and then we'll shift select these cutters, accept, and notice that this didn't work. Now, there are some times when it doesn't work based on your edge selection. The way that we're going to get around this is we're going to hide this body. We're going to go to our edge selection, make sure that we get everything, which now that we've extended this, it should have automatically healed those small sections. And then we're going to duplicate this. So Shift D, and we'll bring the sheet back and hide this one. And with that curve, we're going to use C to cut. And that should cut away that little piece at the top. So now we can get rid of that, get rid of this curve. And what we should be left with is sort of that section where we can join these two back together. So if we wanted to, we could now add that fillet back in. Obviously, we don't want to, but this is what we needed. We needed that sharp edge there, at least for this next step. So the main thing that I want to do is instead of coming straight back and then flaring out at the fender, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start and take the shape out to the fender flare. So I'm going to still keep the fender flare area that we have, but I don't really need anything that's going on inside of here, but I can't get rid of it yet because I need this front edge. So we either need to use the edge of the surface or we need to duplicate it. So we can select the edges up front. We can do a Shift D to duplicate. And then we can select some of these faces. And I'm just going to do this bottom section for right now so we can kind of get an idea of the process. And I want to take a line from each corner of that fillet And let's do this so we can see it a little bit better. Let's rotate it around. So we're going to go from this end point of the fillet to the end point where it meets. We're going to repeat that, Shift A for our line tool. And we'll do the same thing at the bottom, Shift A for our line tool. And these are straight lines, perfectly fine. I'm not going to have too much curvature in this direction, simply because we have curvature in 3 dimensions based on the edges that we're going to use. So let's give this a shot. 2 on the keyboard to get our edge selection. This right here, we'll do Alt and J to unjoin, which will give us that one little section here. We'll loft between these two, G0 continuity, and we'll just select these guides. So I don't need these anymore. I can delete them. We'll do the same thing down here though. So Shift select those, loft, again G0, and come here and here. And you'll notice that this fails. Now part of the reason it fails is because these two are separate. So they need to be joined together if we want to use them as a profile for a loft. It will allow us to use those sort of disjointed segments as a guide, but it won't let you use it for a profile. So if we're using it for a profile, we'll need to join them together. We'll loft. This is going to be G0. This edge is actually going to have tangency. We do want some sort of curvature continuity there. Hold down Shift and select that. So now we can get rid of all these front edge curves. We don't need them. Go back to our body selection, and I'm going to join these together with J. So now if we look at this thing from the front, we still have the same front shape, but now it just gradually blends out to where our wheel arch is. So we need to repeat that process, but in order to do this, we want to split the fender up a bit more. So I'm going to use a line tool, sort of grab this middle section and just draw a line straight up. Shift I for imprint to select the main body. And we'll get rid of this. So because it's all one body, that should split kind of a couple of things here. I'm going to get rid of this with Shift Delete. And then I'm going to use the line tool. So Shift and A from here to there. Once again, I'm not going to add any curvature in this direction. I'm just going to use some straight lines and see what this thing looks like. I already deleted that curve that I had at the front. So what I want to do right now is just try to patch this using this front edge, but no tangency. So I'm going to go to my edge selection. We'll go here, work our way around, grab this upper edge, and we'll note that in the front, there's a little bit of a disjoint here. So we'll need that little section as well. F for find, P-A-T-C-H for patch, and you'll notice nothing happens. Now, if nothing happens, this generally means that there is a disjoint in the guide somewhere. What we want to do is we're going to select that front edge and this little piece here. We'll do Shift D to duplicate. Go back to our all selection, so 5 on the numbers. We're going to Shift Delete that. And I want to rebuild this curve. So I don't want to do anything down here. I know that I have tangency there, but up here, this little segment I don't really need with that rebuild, but the main thing that I need to do is I need to take that. I'm going to use GG and hold down Control to make sure it's the end of that edge. So now with our edge selection, let's try this again. Should be single curve. Up here, F and patch. And if we still get nothing, the second place that we need to look is back here. I'm going to go into orthographic mode with 5 on our numpad. This lets me zoom in a bit further. I'm going to go back to my all selection, and I'm just going to move this. G and G, hold down Control for snap, 2 for my edges, and let's just work our way around. Let's try this again. So Shift select. Let's just make sure that there's no little piece missing up here. Looks okay. And let's try patch one more time. All right, so patch still isn't working. The next thing that we might want to do is we might want to split this up and make a smaller section. So the way that we're going to do this is from the side. I'm just going to use a line. Just pick wherever you want to split it up. Just draw a vertical line and Shift and I. We'll break that up, and Shift and I break that up. So the main reason that we want to do this is because now we can create a bridge curve coming from this section up to here, G0 at the top, G1 at the bottom. We're going to make sure that it's at the start or the end of each of those curves based on our selection. And now we should be able to build out this little section. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to loft from here to here, G0 at the top. This is my guide. Shift select this as a guide. And there we go. We'll delete that, go back to our all selection, and join all these pieces together. So one of the things that we've run into before, when we don't have these joined together, there's a possible disjoint in the corner. Now, that's probably the reason patch still wasn't working. I could have joined them together and given it a shot, but we just went ahead and built that front little piece. We're going to try patch again. Tangency here, and it still doesn't seem to work. It doesn't like that back edge. So I'm going to go to my all selection. I'm going to get rid of this, and I'm going to try to do another one. So I'm going to use bridge curve this time. From here to here, G0 for both of those, and make sure that it's either at the start or the end based on our selection. That should make sure that we intersect those edges. So let's try again. So we're going to do edge selection, this one here, and patch. Still don't really have anything happening here. So I'm thinking there might be a small gap somewhere else. So let's do this. Let's go ahead and break this up one more position. So I'm going to go ahead and do a line here. Shift and I. That should break up the whole body. And let's repeat this one more time. So once again, bridge curve here to here. It's going to be 0 and 1. G0 at the top, G1 at the bottom. And let's go ahead and patch this. So we should have G1 here and G1 here. But you can see patch doesn't like what's going on here. Now, if we try to loft from one to the other, we'll use this as a guide, shift select this as a guide, make sure it's G0. You can see that that works out okay, but there's a little bit of a disjoint here. Now, if we go ahead and join these together, Plasticity will heal that for us, but you can see that it did take some liberties in sort of fixing that area. Because this is problematic, I'm going to try one more time. But if this doesn't work, then what I'm going to do is start building the surface backwards, and that way I'll have an edge to select here. So let's go ahead and select all these, keeping in mind that we can't use loft here, just simply because we don't have a nice boundary to work with. This is going to be G0, that's G0. Yeah, it just doesn't seem to want to do that. So that's okay. I'm going to work my way back. So with all selection, we'll get rid of this, shift delete. And actually, let's get rid of more of this. So shift delete, shift delete. I don't need any of this. Just get rid of all of it. And then I want to bridge basically the Fender flare. I want to bridge that midline body to where I want the flare to be. So this is going to be at 100%. G1 continuity, G0 at the wheel arch. We're not driving tangency here. And then I'll repeat that over here. So G0 at the end, G1, that'll be 0. And now I can use this to sort of define this intermediate shape. This is going to be the driving shape for the shape of the fender. So we'll add these and we'll get rid of them. So once again, let's join all this together. So it kind of heals the edges. The bottom section, I should be able to patch or loft. So let's try loft first. Go from there to there. We will do G0 at the fender well. That'll be tangent. This down here will be G0. And then we will join them together. All right, so that's looking pretty good so far. We just kind of need to fill in the top section. So I'm going to try my hand at using this over here with patch. You can see it works here. We want G1 and G1. Gives us a nice gradual shape. It looks pretty good. And then we can get rid of this edge. Patch will automatically join them together. And now with this edge, and I know everything's connected, I'll try patch again up here. And if this doesn't work, then we're just going to have to get creative. Yeah, it really just does not like whatever's going on here. So there must just be something with one of these edges here. My guess, again, is that there's maybe a little potential problem, maybe down here. One thing you can also do, if you select an edge on a sheet like this and I hit delete, sometimes it will be able to get rid of it and heal it, so you can see that we're able to heal it there. It still leaves this edge here, but it is able to sort of patch and heal that. This one might be okay if we do it there and delete. And let's see if this gives us anything else to work with. All right. So we need to do a little bit more investigation. There's probably something in a corner somewhere. And maybe let's just get rid of that and heal it. So you can see when I deleted that, there's a little bit of a gap here. So what I'm going to do is try Control R, hit Tab. And so basically there's a little bit of a gap right there. So what I'm going to do is Control Z. I'm going to bring that edge back. And then I'm going to get rid of this little piece. So Shift Delete. We'll do a bridge curve from here to here. G0 on the one side, G1 on the other. Make sure that it's at 0 or 100. And then let's fill in this little section. So I'm going to loft from the front to back. G0 there. G1 on this one, Shift select that one. And then we'll join them together. So what we're hoping to make sure we don't have any little gaps. Join, hopefully will heal that for us. And let's try again. Hopefully that was the problem. All right, now we're working. Okay, so it seems like there was a tiny little break in that edge, potential problem, and again, just kind of getting rid of it and rebuilding it allowed us to do that. All right, so let's hide our edges and let's just look at that shape. So I think that is a whole lot better. It's a whole lot better than just kind of that bumped out section on the back that we had going on. So I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to bring actually, let's go into perspective, just get a little better. So I like how the edge disappears right there. And I like the front quite a bit better. So we're going to do the same thing to the rear. So let's bring our edges back and let's start working on the back. So in the back, we're going to do the same thing. I am going to get rid of that flare completely. And here as well, don't need it. And I don't need it there. Then we want to use or retain the back shape. So I'm going to do Shift D there, Shift D there, Shift D there. And then I can get rid of this as well. I'll just do Shift Delete. And what we're going to be doing is creating a line. It goes from there to there. And then we need to create a line from the bottom to that point. And we're going to do the same thing here. So we're going to drive the shape of this middle piece first, basically that mid body line. So we're going to loft from here to here. G0 at the fender flare, and we'll use both of those as guides. Then we're going to fill in the bottom section. We'll just loft from one to the other. Use this, G0, Shift select that. Makes this one G1 again. We'll delete that and the sections we don't need. So 5 on the keyboard. Make sure that we join these all together to heal any issues that we have there. And now we got to fill in this section. So Go ahead and select all of these, F patch, and you can see nothing's happening. So this is going to be G1 here, but nothing is being built. So again, it probably tells me that there is an issue down here, this little corner, or potentially an issue with this curve up here. So I'm going to use bridge curve, that point to that point. G0 for both of them should just give me a straight line. And we'll try to patch it one more time. All right, so if that doesn't work, we're going to just kind of do the same thing we did before. I'm going to go ahead and work forward a bit and figure out where I want this to start blending. So Shift A, maybe somewhere around here. I don't necessarily want it to be a straight line, so I'm going to rebuild that curve and maybe give it some shape. Pull this one back. And then we'll take that curve and do Shift I. And then we can just delete some of this other stuff. I'm not going to delete this this piece down here, but what I want to do is use a bridge curve. And we'll set this one at 0. We'll set this one at 1. G1 continuity on both. And then C to cut and get rid of this extra little piece. So basically just changing that to be a little bit smoother. So let's give this front piece a shot. We're going to do a bridge curve. And once again, we're going to define this from that midline fillet first. So G0 at the end, G1 there. Repeat, so Shift R. G0, G1. And then edge selection will go and loft from front to back. G0 there. Shift select our guides. And then all selection, and we'll join these together. So joining them together will just ensure that we've got a good connection here. So let's join that. And we should be able to fill in this bottom section. Now this bottom section can be done with a loft or a patch. I'm going to try a loft. This is a guide, G0 down here. Shift select that. And just make sure that we've got tangency on the back edge, tangency on that midline fillet, and then continuity at the wheel arch and at the sort of side skirt area. Join them together and starting to define the shape. So now we have to work in this section here. So this patch didn't work on the back, but let's try it on the front. We'll just give it a shot, see if it works. And it works there. So G1, G1, 0, 0. Remember, patch will join it to the rest of the body. And if we're lucky, patch will now work on the back side. What I'm going to assume or guess is that there's maybe a little segment missing somewhere. But with that edge joined together, let's try patch and just see if it works. There we go. So no idea why it didn't work the first time, but if that happens to you, working on a different area, kind of moving forward and trying that. And again, remember, we can select these edges and delete, and sometimes we'll be able to patch them. It doesn't really matter, honestly, for the geometry because we can hide and show edges. But the main thing that we want to see here is that we've got nice smooth transitions. There's maybe a little bit of something going on right here. Not a big deal. Basically just where we go from coming back and start to flare out. But I think that this is a much better solution than what we had before. And we still have the duplicate. So if we take the duplicate and just kind of move it up, and then we take this one and mirror it, and join them. Actually, I'm not going to join them together because we don't need it. But if we go to our sort of clay, so I think that when we look at these two, this harder transition just doesn't fit the body lines quite as nicely as that gradual blend. So We basically went from this harder transition to taking it all the way out to somewhere about here on the body, and same thing on the back. We went forward and kind of blended them forward. So I'm much happier with that shape. I think that fits a bit better. I don't really need to keep this one around, so I'm going to go ahead and delete it. And we can also take a look at like zebra stripes and just kind of make sure that these transitions don't have any big jumps or bumps in them. I'm not quite to the point where I want to add a fillet back to this edge, just simply because we may need to do something with it again, especially once we add things like the windscreen area. So for right now, I'm going to leave it, but I think this is looking pretty good. I like the shape, I like the fender flares, and I'm glad that we detoured and kind of took care of that. So I think that's probably where I want to end this video. If you have any questions on anything we've done so far, please let me know. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.